G'day viewers and listeners. Welcome back to the Carbone Lawyers Law Lab podcast series. My name's Tony Carbone. I'm managing partner at Carbone Lawyers. With me I've got John Karantzis. He's a expert in workers' compensation specialist and also runs the litigation department at Carbone Lawyers. G'day, John.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Marin.
And an associate at Carbone Lawyers, Marin Carlos. How are you, Marin?
Good, Tony. How are you?
Good. Viewers, today we're going to be talking about work cover. There's some interesting cases we want to discuss. So it's absolutely critical that you pay attention to these cases.
However, before we get to that, Tony, what's in the news?
Well, there's always a lot in the news. You
Oh,
know that,
yes.
John.
Oh, yes.
Look, John wants to kick off with what's happened down at Collingwood.
Oh, yes, Tony. This is a disaster for the Collingwood Football Club, Tony. A self-commissioned report by two independent professors from Sydney University has found that a history of racism at the Collingwood Football Club for over 50 years, Tony.
Marin,
unbelievable.
In this day and age, it's not acceptable, is it?
Absolutely not. We have to be very careful in how we approach different cultures and you know, be very cognizant of all people from different walks of life.
John,
Exactly.
Eddie Maguire himself was heavily attacked by the media and even people from the club in terms of the way he dealt with the report. But is it possible he was taken out of context?
Well, in the sense that I think he was trying to highlight the positives of the report, as in, hey, look, guys, we've done a report on our club, but to say that this is a proud day for the Collingwood Football Club, it was not the right wording, Tony.
Marin, poor
wording.
choice of words, but what I think he was trying to say was we're proud that we have actually put it on the table and we want to clear it up. Isn't that what he's trying to say?
Yeah, I think he's proud of the whole exercise of looking internally and seeing what they can do to improve in future.
Yes.
But in the end, Tony, well, actions speak louder than words.
Oh, of course.
Let's see what comes out of this report.
Of course.
Will anything change?
These days, you've got to be so careful what you say, how you say it. I mean, a lot of what you say, someone's going to get offended. We've become a very, very sensitive society, but when it comes to racism, it's out. There's no way you can pick and do anything when you start talking about colour. You cannot do it.
There's no excuse.
No. John, this Philippine man who's Australian citizen developed silicosis. What's silicosis, John?
Tony, it's a disease that you develop when working with rock, and you're cutting into rock and you're breathing in the dust.
Yeah, okay.
It's a type of asbestos, Tony.
It's very similar.
And it's a killer. And it's killing at the moment hundreds and hundreds of workers throughout Australia because they're cutting into rock, and it's been made illegal now to do dry rock cutting. Okay. So at least when it's with water, the dust will settle. It won't be flying up in people's faces.
Well, Marin, just on that issue there, they didn't really take the right precautions in this case, did they?
No, I don't believe they did.
They didn't give him a mask.
Yeah, when doing high-risk work like that, when we know that there is some exposure, protective equipment is the first step.
You need masks. You need eye protection, Tony. It's just standard, and for in this day and age, for that to occur, it's actually unbelievable.
And it's not a treatable condition, is it?
No.
I mean, bottom line,
it's a death sentence, Tony.
Yeah,
it's a death sentence. You get silicosis, unfortunately, within 10 years.
Will probably pass away.
Yes, exactly.
So, and just on that issue there, Marin, the rights are for the worker, obviously, to be compensated. But if something were to happen to the worker, there's also dependency, which we'll
dependency
talk about,
claims,
won't we?
which is what we're going to talk about today in today's episode.
Yes.
Yep.
In terms of any dependency claims, look, if someone has unfortunately passed away, there are entitlements not only to the individual with the funeral expenses, but also to the family and supplementing the wages that they've lost by the loss of a very important person to the family.
Oh, yes.
One of the things, this whole coronavirus has really transformed the landscape for workers, families, employers.
Working from home.
It's a real, I mean, in my time on this earth, John, I don't think I've experienced anything.
It's a pandemic once in 100 years, Tony.
It's been very difficult, and I guess as an employer, one of the things that we look at is ensuring the mental health and well-being of our staff, correct?
Oh, yes.
Because, contracting the virus is bad enough in itself, but then people working from home, there's no distinction between work and home life, and it becomes tough.
And they're on their own, Tony. Lack of human contact.
Of course.
Luckily, with telephone and with FaceTime and video and Zoom, we have that contact, but it's still pretty hard, isn't it, Tony?
Course,
and it can never replace face-to-face human contact.
No, not at all. But where I'm going to go with this is this. In Australia, we've had a lot of cases of COVID, especially in Victoria. And look, there's been about over 1,000 deaths throughout the country, okay? And that's very, very sad and tragic. But where I'm coming from is this. Fortunately, if you contract the virus at work, WorkSafe have adopted a very lenient approach, haven't they, Murray? What have they done?
Well, if someone contracts coronavirus at work and they're entitled to put in a workers' compensation claim, and more likely than not, if they have contracted the virus, it will be an accepted claim.
Well, John, they've made a determination that anyone that's got the virus whilst in the working environment, they'll accept the claim, correct?
That's my understanding, Tony. There's a direction by Victoria WorkSafe that the claims would be accepted if it's in the course of employment.
And a couple of states have actually legislated to make it law.
That's right. So some states have made it deemed accepted workplace injuries. As simple as you were at work and you've contracted the virus, it would be a deemed workplace injury.
And of course, Tony, once the claim is accepted, the worker is entitled to weekly payments of compensation.
Yes.
At a certain percentage rate.
Ongoing medical treatment.
And there
any
may
time
be
off work.
Exactly. And in the future there may be lump sum claims entitlement. We'll see.
Well, in some instances, you've heard of people that have got ongoing symptoms of the virus.
Exactly.
And look, realistically, no one can tell you if you're ever going to fully recover. There's some people that still complain of loss of taste and headaches. One lady I'm dealing with says she's still got headaches 3 months after she got the virus, which is pretty debilitating.
And in the end, Tony, if you're permanently unable to work due to contracting the coronavirus, you will be able to access your superannuation disability benefits.
Yes, that's right. I want to look at this case of the Director of Public Prosecutions and Patrick Stevedores. It's a 2018 prosecution, Marin. Can you tell us the basic facts?
Look, Tony, this was a workplace where employees raised concerns of unsafe forklift load limits, and the health and safety representative actually calculated the weight and found that the coils and the forklift was actually above the recommended load. The employees made complaints and
to who?
To the employer and to the operations manager, I believe, and the response by the employer and the employer representatives was far less than satisfactory. In fact, they were...
Well, they did nothing.
They did nothing. They dismissed it. There's even allegations that it was discriminatory conduct. Sometimes some people were even threatened with the sack.
Okay.
I think, Tony, part of the evidence was that some employees were told in no uncertain terms that you will lose your job if this went further.
Oh, look, that's outrageous. And look, let's be realistic. They've always likened the car to a dangerous weapon. Well, a forklift is just as bad, isn't it?
Very dangerous.
I mean, you're carrying goods and whatever else. And all the accidents we've done over the years involving forklifts, there have been some nasty and horrific injuries.
Horrific.
Yes. And so what did the court do in this?
So the court in this case actually handed down a fine of $475,000. Now that's an extraordinary fine. So that these kind of fines are indicative of really heinous behaviour and behaviour that needs to be stamped out.
What was the court concerned with, Marin?
The court was concerned with the conduct of the employer and the discrimination that was, the discriminatory conduct.
The fact that representatives of the employer were trying to stop employees from complaining about health and safety practices.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, which is, Tony, it's a cornerstone of the work cover legislation.
Of course.
Simple as that. And that's why the court really came down really hard on this organisation.
And as harsh as it sounds, 475,000, bottom line, this is a big company.
Exactly.
I mean,
they're worth billions.
It's probably a pin drop for them.
Yeah.
In the ocean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all got to be put in perspective.
Exactly.
Let's get on to this other case of workers' compensation, nominal insurer in Hill. This is a New South Wales decision. This is a very sad and tragic set of facts here.
Tragic.
John, you want to give us the facts? Or
in June 2010, Tony, a lady working at home, her partner killed her between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning. Now, sometime later, the children made a dependency claim, as in she was killed in the course of her employment, and therefore the children are entitled to work cover dependency benefits.
they were both financial advisors, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And initially, Tony, the claim was rejected on the basis that no, she was at home in those early hours in her pajamas when she was killed. That was part of the evidence. But thereafter, when this case went to appeal, and the facts were really outlined by the court, it was made clear that the deceased actually was working during those odd hours between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., taking phone calls in the morning whilst she was in her pajamas. And as we know from COVID experience, Tony, actually that can happen now.
I want to see you funded, John. Marin, the court had to decide whether the death or injury occurred in the course of the deceased's employment. Right? Now, usually if you're at work, you're not covered before you get there, correct? And you're not covered after you leave.
Exactly.
Usually.
And if you're a person that works between work sites, you're covered between work sites.
That's right.
But you're not covered when you leave and you're going home. And if you have a car accident and it's someone else's fault, you can sue the other driver. Now, the key component to this case, as John properly alluded to, was the fact that she was killed at a time when the employer was trying to argue she wasn't working because she hadn't started working.
That's right.
And so the key component to the case being accepted, what was it?
Well, it was the evidence came out that this individual was not only working from the set hours of 9 to 5. There was, expectations that she would take phone calls after hours, before hours. Working from home. It's actually sort of increased the working hours.
And it was reasonable for the court to conclude that at that time of the morning, in her pajamas, she could have been working.
Well, in fact, there was evidence that was led in the court that said that she often worked from her bedroom and she often took calls prior to 9 a.m. Look, it stands to reason. You've got to apply a bit of logic. If you're working from home, you've got to have a bit more of a flexible working environment, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you might be doing emails and making phone calls at 7 in the morning. But, at 9:30, you might be having a shower. At 9:30, under normal work conditions, you'd be at work already, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a sensible result.
That's right. And she's on call.
It's a sensible result, Tony.
Yeah.
Now the children are entitled to lump sum benefits and an ongoing pension, Tony.
Well, the beauty of it now is that the next issue we're going to talk about is dependency. And this case rolls beautifully into that because now we can start explaining to the viewers and listeners how big the dependency benefits are, right? Marin, what is the dependency claim under work cover?
A dependency claim under work cover is for individuals who unfortunately have passed away and their families. It provides a compensation to the families for the loss of their loved ones. usually by way of lump sum, as John has mentioned, and also pensions, ongoing pensions. And there's some complexities and some rules about the pensions and how they apply. But look, generally there needs to be a worker. A worker must pass away, become deceased by reason of or whilst in working, and the entitlements to the dependents flow on from there. And there's questions.
John, the key component is you've got to be dependent on the income of the deceased, correct?
Correct.
For
And
the Wrongs Act claim. But then there's also the
no-fault benefits.
The no-fault benefit.
And they're big too, aren't they?
Nearly $600,000, Tony.
And look, realistically, you can't get both. You can get a no-fault benefit, but if you go common law, that comes off.
Yeah, exactly. It gets taken into account. But common law under the Wrongs Act, those pensions can go on for quite a while, Tony.
And also the children are covered whilst they're studying.
Yes.
And in some circumstances, it could even be university.
Yes.
And those pensions are pretty big, aren't they, John?
Yes. Oh, yes. It's again, it's taken as an average of what the wage was.
Yes, yes. It's the end of the show, guys, already.
Yeah.
John, thanks for coming on board
Great
again.
to be
Always
here
a
again,
pleasure.
Tony.
Marin?
Thank you, Tony.
Viewers and listeners, thanks for watching. Go to our social media platform, download our episodes, stream our episodes, stay tuned for future episodes, and always remember to stay safe.